I grew up watching this movie about this. I think his name was Bill Murray, and he keeps living the same day over and over again. And there's this guy that just irks him. I mean, he just hates the guy, and he turns out to be an insurance salesman, which I mean, oh boy, if the boot fits, right? And every single day, because he keeps reliving the same day. It's Groundhog Day, and he keeps reliving it over and over again. And every single day, he steps off the curb and into this giant puddle of water. And every single time the guy laughs at him and says, "Oh, watch that first step. It's a doozy." Oh my goodness. And so we're talking about enemies, how to deal with enemies. And we asked the question last week, what happens when those enemies are people that you used to really care about? What happens when when it's personal? It's not just somebody that like you work with, you're like, I don't like that person. But when it's someone like in your family, or an old friend, or somebody in the church, and it's like they're your enemy, and it was something that it has a more personal history to it. Last week we looked at the prophet Amos, and with the basic idea of don't want punishment on others too much because it might come on you too. And so tonight we're looking at Habakkuk, the prophet Habakkuk. Now, Habakkuk is a funny prophet because his name's Habakkuk. I mean, if your name was Habakkuk, that'd be pretty funny. And so this guy who has this funny name was a prophet around 650 BC. So this is about 130 years after Amos. And at this point, God's people are no longer two nations, Israel and Judah. That's gone the way of the buffalo. Now Israel has been destroyed. That's the kingdom to the north. Now it's just Judah. Judah is all that remains of God's people as a nation. And Habakkuk prophesies in 650 BC. Remember, if you go BC, numbers go up the farther you get back. So it would be just 50 years later, just after 600 BC, when Judah would fall. So Habakkuk is kind of like the last, when you're coming up on your turn, and like they keep giving you signs like, hey, your turn in X amount of miles. Habakkuk is that last sign that says, hey, if you want to get off, this is really the place. You're going to miss your turn. And that's kind of where Habakkuk is. And like many of us, Habakkuk wanted God to punish those who wronged him. I mean, haven't you ever been there? Somebody does you wrong. They're just mean, nasty people. And you're like, you know what? The world would be better off if they just get what's coming to them. We all have those people in our lives, people who we just don't really like. For whatever reason. Sometimes it's because, it was personal for us. We tried to help them and they just returned it for evil. Sometimes it's somebody that we just never got along with. Sometimes it's somebody who took advantage of us, or whatever. But so let's look at Habakkuk and see what this prophet has to say about dealing with our enemies. And we'll start off with just here at the beginning. Habakkuk goes to God, and he's upset because of what seems to him like a lack of justice. There's people doing the wrong thing, and Habakkuk wants God to take care of this. How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen, or cry out to you violence, but you don't save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Okay. Destruction and violence are before me. I swear I didn't do that. I don't know what's going on here. Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore, the law is paralyzed. Justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, so that justice is perverted. And I think that's the end of yeah. So here we have Habakkuk bringing up this basic complaint. And it goes something along the lines of this. Now, I know this isn't what he said, but if you kind of read the subtext here, this is kind of what he's saying. I'm good. And there's these sinners that you need to deal with, right? I'm not the sinner. They are. Yeah, there's these sinners over here. You need to deal with them. And, we oftentimes go to the problem with that. I did nothing wrong. They are completely wrong. Okay, all right. So you can kind of see, pretending for 1 second that you've never prayed anything like this, you can definitely see how hypothetically someone would have obviously pride in their heart to be able to think that they could stand in judgment of another person when they themselves are sinners, right? I mean, that's the thing about Jesus. He never sinned, right? perfection. So a little bit different for him to stand in judgment. So then Habakkuk verses 5 through 11, God gives his answer. And I'll just take out one verse because he goes on for a little bit. And it says in Habakkuk 1:6, I am raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own. So he says, okay, Habakkuk, I know about this, okay? And I'm actually raising up a nation, which, by the way, you don't like them. And, they're gonna come in and they're just gonna destroy your homeland. And by the way, they're really wicked people. So there's that. God's going to bring punishment through a people who are worse than the people who Habakkuk is praying against. Imagine that, okay? There's this person that you really don't like, and you're like, God, please punish them. And then God says, oh, I'm going to punish them, all right, and it's going to be with people who are even worse, and you're going to get caught in that too. What? Hold on. Wait. Hold on. You went too far, God. And here's another thing that was even worse, is the people that God was raising up were people who hated God. That's the part that blows me away, that God would use people that not just Habakkuk doesn't like, not just aren't God's people, but that God would use people who hate him for his purposes. That's a frustrating thing. So what happens with you when you're in a church and someone calls himself a Christian, but they are just nasty and bitter people, just, ugh. Could it be that God could use that person that you don't like to work in you? Well, it's possible. It happens. Stranger things have happened. So then, God gives his reply in verses 5 through 11. And Habakkuk just kind of says, whoa, some words were said. Let's just take a step back here. Let's talk about this, God. I don't think you meant what you said and what you think that you meant that you said. So let's just real quick, just readdress this issue. And basically he says, God, they're worse than the sinners I wanted you to punish. And so that brings us, and once again, I'm not going to read the whole thing. If you'd like to read Habakkuk's entire reply, it's from chapter 1, verse 12 through chapter 2, verse 3, I believe. And you can go read it for yourself. But I just want to highlight, just to kind of give you the main flow of the argument here. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil, God. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? So these people, the Babylonians, they're really wicked. And I was already griping and complaining about these people who I didn't think were as good as me. Now you're saying you're going to bring up even worse people to consume those people who have their problems, but at least they're not them. I don't think you know what you're doing here, God. And, we often find ourselves in those kinds of situations getting in a little argument with God because, well, he's just not doing things the way that we want them done. And I don't think that this was a new concept to Habakkuk. I think he really struggled with this. And if you read his words throughout the prophet, you can really kind of get that. And here was a big, I guess you could say, aha moment for Habakkuk, was that punishment was coming, but it was going to start with God's people. See, in the church, we usually have this kind of mindset, we're the righteous ones, okay? We're the good ones, okay? So that means that we are sinless in any situation, and everybody else deserves punishment, but we deserve the grace that we've got somehow, because we might not have deserved it at first when we got saved, but that was then. This is now. I've proved that I was worthwhile for God to save, and so now I don't understand why God isn't playing ball. And we don't say it that bluntly when we're praying. But that's what we're saying when we're praying. I don't get your reasoning here, God. This isn't fair. And well, I think I've suffered long enough. But here's something that could equally be true. Maybe God suffered you long enough. See, it's easy to point and say, God, you've given them enough patience. You need to go ahead and knock them out. But it's a lot harder when you are the them. What if you're thinking God's been too patient with them, but all along you're the one who's straining, if you would, God's patience? See, we want God to be patient with us, and this is kind of a big idea. In fact, I even put it on a PowerPoint slide with the text, big idea, just so that we would establish, two or more are gathered here, that this is, in fact, a big idea. We want God to punish them. See this? We want God to be patient with us, but rush to punish others. Is that what I wrote there? We want God to be patient with us. Yeah, that's what I wrote. Okay, just double checking here. And that's kind of the way that we go. In any given situation, I'm 100% right, they're 100% wrong. I don't think that. Okay, have you ever been divorced? Of course, your ex was completely 100% wrong, you were completely 100% right? Have you ever parented, right? Your kids were always wrong, you were always right. Have you ever been to work and been fired? Oh well, my boss was completely wrong. I was complete. Come on, let's not lie to ourselves any more than's necessary here. The truth is that we want God to be patient with us, but rush to punish somebody else. And that takes us to a little bit of a I guess you could call it a conundrum. We want the benefits of living for God, but we don't want to live for God by enduring mistreatment. I'll say it again. We want the benefits of living for God, but we don't want to live for God by enduring mistreatment. And, well, that's not fair. Well, how do you think you're going to get an opportunity to do the right thing if there's never an opportunity to do the wrong thing? To say it as a philosopher, a choice can't exist in a vacuum. If you want to really have the choice to obey God, there has to be some kind of a choice to disobey God. But we don't want that. We want the street cred of having lived by faith. But we don't actually want to have to go through the trials necessary to choose the faith. And here's the real kicker. God endures our mistreating him. God endures our mistreatment of him. Oh, I don't mistreat him. Well, then you're lying to yourself. God is perfect. That means anything you do wrong, he didn't deserve. So we want the blessings of God without enduring the mistreatment of others, while God is enduring our mistreatment of him. But they're a pain, and I'm not. I'm pleasant. Everybody likes me. Well, there was one time that my brother, this was years ago, so don't hold this against him now. But he calls me up in the middle of the night. It's like, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning. He's like, hey, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's all, you're stupid or something. I don't know. He's drunk. I don't know what the hell he's saying. And I'm like, okay, is this important? I was sleeping, and can we just move on? And he's going through this thing. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go back to bed now. Oh, okay, idiot. And I was like, okay, whatever. So then the next day, he's all talking to me. We're going to work. We used to work together. Ugh. Tell me about disaster. And then I worked construction, which I wasn't really good at. And so it just added on to the cumulative effect of all the things that were going wrong. And so he's talking to me, and he's saying about how his friends like him drunk, and that he's really pleasant to be around drunk. And I'm just like, you called me last night. He's like, oh, what did I say? And I was like, nothing. You didn't say anything. Okay. Anyways, no, I don't think your friends think that. And then by a quinky dink later that same week, my other brother tells him, you are a pain in the butt when you get drunk. And he says, really? I think everybody likes me when I'm drunk. And I was like, how would you know you're drunk? But anyways, we have this idea, God, they're the pain. They're the one that you need to work in. I'm fine. Don't bother with me. And then when we read the Bible, right? We see everything, how it applies to them. God will give a word. We see how it applies to them. God will, things will be happening. Oh, I see exactly. If only they were here so they could hear how God needs to change them. And we don't even start with the process of maybe I could, in some small way, become a little bit more awesome than I already am. Maybe. But they're the pain, God. And here's the painful truth that I think we all kind of hide from ourselves. You can't have the blessings of God without the long suffering of God. See, you have to suffer long in unfair situations if you actually want the blessings of God. But that's not how we want it. We want it like this. Okay, I'm doing the right thing. I got saved, and I'm not doing drugs. I'm not beating people up. So therefore, I need to just have blessings heaped on me, and I don't actually have to, obey God or soften my heart or deal with people who are in pain. God's just going to put me in a fantasy realm where there's never anybody who annoys me, and never anything that goes wrong. And I mean, all my dreams are going to come true because I voted for Pedro, and all these different things that could have gone wrong, they're not going to go wrong because hey, everything's fine. And then reality hits, and you get mad at God because reality is a cruel mistress. And God forbid we may actually be wrong and need to change or grow, at least a little bit. Now, I'm not saying you aren't awesome, but maybe not as awesome as you think you are. And that's something that we all kind of do. We live in our own little legend, our own little myth, and refuse anything that even hints towards the fact that we have an insufficiency. It's something that happens naturally in the back of our heads. Whenever we're interpreting information, we always put ourselves in the best light possible. This is actually something that they've done a lot of research on. This is a real psychological dilemma that happens. We cast ourselves in the best light possible. It's a little lie that we tell ourselves all the time, which is why it's important to have people who don't just tell you what you want to hear, but actually tell you the truth. So Habakkuk had this scale. It was him versus others. And then Babylon was brought into the equation, so he had a whole different scale. Okay, scrap that scale. Let's do this instead. Others versus Babylon. I mean, Babylon is the worst possible thing that could happen. So anything better than them is like good. But I'm still like somewhere over here because I'm like good. But I mean, they're not as good as me, but they're not Babylon. You see what I mean? He had this whole scale worked out, and he found the way to put himself on the positive end of the scale. And we all have a similar scale, though. It's not something that Habakkuk was alone in. We have, and I talked about this in our young adult group actually a couple weeks ago. We have okay, there's good over here. So it'd be like Mother Teresa, the person that we put on. Oh, and then there's somewhere in the middle, there's less good, but not really evil. I mean, I don't need Jesus, but I mean, I'm not like Satan incarnate or anything, but I mean, I'm not quite Mother Teresa. I'm somewhere in there. I mean, I try to do good things. I give to charity and that kind of thing. And then there's Hitler, the far evil, over here. And we always get to this kind of a conclusion. They are Hitler. Whoever they are, they're completely wrong. They couldn't be more wronger. And we are good. So maybe not quite Mother Teresa, but I mean, we're definitely not Hitler. And, so, okay. Well, but here's the thing. With God, there isn't a scale. Look what he says in chapter 2, verse 4. Look, his ego is inflated. He is without integrity. He's talking about prideful people, which I'll get to in just a second. But the righteous one will live by his faith. So basically what God said, let me reword it, okay? And you can read through Habakkuk yourself and see if you think this is an accurate translation. Something along the lines of this. You have this scale, Habakkuk. First off, I know what I'm doing. But second off, there are prideful people, and then there are people who live by faith. Which one are you going to be, Habakkuk? Because at the beginning of the book, Habakkuk was one of these prideful people where his ego was inflated. And by the end of the book, he's one of these people living by faith. So God kind of gives him and brings some clarity and says, okay, you can be one or the other, Habakkuk. You can't be both. You can either be the prideful person whose ego is inflated, or you can live by faith. And what a hard thing to choose. What a hard thing to choose. And I'm going to say this in just a minute, but the conversation of Habakkuk quickly changes. It starts with good with somebody who's not as good as me. Then it's God's people versus Babylon. And then God kind of just changes the argument in total. Okay, Habakkuk, you think the argument is about how evil Babylon is or about how those people are. This is really the argument. Prideful people versus those who live by faith. Completely changes the conversation that Habakkuk is having with God. See, because Habakkuk got caught in these different things. Nationalism, self-righteousness, And God had this way of just completely, you're missing the bigger picture here, Habakkuk. Hold on. You're missing it. And see, the thing is, and Jesus brings clarity on this in the New Testament, that God alone is good. That means none of us are good. On the scale of good and evil, we don't make it on that scale. Okay? Because it is impossible for us to be good. Only God is good. That means that we stand completely indebted to God's grace. So remember this when you're dealing with your enemies, that scale that you have in your head. Mother Teresa, and then me. Hitler, them. It's not really reality. The rest of us are sinners who mess up. The James actually says that if you mess up in one part of the law, you've actually failed the whole of the law. So saying, well, I mean, at least I didn't do as many bad things, you broke the law. You're a lawbreaker. That's what you are. I was riding my bike, which, how can you not have a good time riding a bike? I mean, come on. I'm out there having a good time. If you've ever seen the cyclers, they always look like this. Right? And so I'm riding my bike. I'm having a good time. And this guy cuts me off. And I'm like, okay, all right, it's okay. It's fine. Okay. Another guy gets too close and he whizzes by me. Whoa, I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, it's all going. I had a good time. How can I not have a good time riding my bike? Okay, we're fine. At this point, I have a death grip on my handlebars, bending them sideways, And okay, it's fine. It's all right. It's all good. I'm fine. Then there's this guy that swerves at me coming the other way and starts yelling at me, thinks that he's real funny. And I'm like, okay, there was the line. That last guy, he crossed it. I let the first two go. The last one has earned my wrath. So here we go. A little bit was okay, but it started to build. So here we go. And if you've ever seen the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, there's this part where the son, who's just like a whack job, is all driving this car and he's all, ooh, you're really bugging me, man. And that's exactly how I felt. A little bit crazy, and no one to vent to except myself and the bike in the open air, and a grasshopper that jumped up on me while I was biking by. But so then I decided, okay, enough is enough. God, they endangered me. They're going to hurt somebody. Now I'm going to pray, and we're going to get after this guy. Woo! He didn't know he's got to deal with somebody who's going to be praying. Woo! Okay, all right. Let's lay this down on him. Cause him to get in a wreck, God. That'll teach him. And then God said something, and I didn't like it, so I went more mellow on them. I said, okay, if they get in a wreck, help no one else to get hurt. And the thing that God had said, and I'll tell you what it was in just a minute, was still kind of ringing on me. And I thought, okay, all right, I'll change it again. If they get in a wreck, help them not to get hurt. And then it changed to, well, bring a cop by to give them a ticket. Then I could still at least have a laugh as I bike past them. Well, the thing that God told me was still bugging me a little bit. So then I said, well, God, keep them safe. Well, at least keep me safe. And then I changed my tune and I actually said this, which was probably what I should have said in the first place. Thank you, God, that I'm okay. And you might ask, well, what changed your attitude from, hey, get them in a car wreck, burning in the flames, to now, hey, thanks for keeping me safe? It was a very simple thing that God said that, it bothered me. What if I taught them a lesson by crashing them into you? See, I wasn't willing to die for the lesson. No. But I wanted them to die learning the lesson. Think about the stupidity of this, okay? If they're dead, what good was the lesson in the first place? Think about that. But I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in how I could get back at this person. And I knew exactly how to do it. It was prayer. Prayer was the answer that would solve all my problems. It would destroy everybody else and leave me the one, oh, I was just wronged by them, but I'm still standing because I'm so righteous. So righteous. And obviously, God had a little bit of a disagreement with me. I had selfish motivation in my prayer request. I would say that when Jesus says to pray in my name and I'll answer it, I'm pretty sure that wasn't praying in God's name. I'm pretty sure that was praying in my name. I haven't checked, but I think. Sometimes we say something along the lines of this, well, I don't want them to die. I don't want them to suffer. I don't want anybody to get hurt. But then we treat them like we actually do want them to get hurt. So we say with our mouth, oh, no, I have no enemies. I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want them to get hurt. I'm just, suffering and joy and happiness. But then we treat that person as though we want them to drop dead. So what good is it? Habakkuk was okay with God punishing them, whoever them was, Judah, Babylon, but he didn't want to have to suffer with them. That was where he drew the line. I'm okay, God, if you wipe out everybody who rubs me the wrong way. That's fine. Don't let me get hurt in this process. We have more compassion on ourselves than on anyone else. It's even worse when we suffer for them and they don't suffer at all. And then the little icing on the cake, that they still don't change. So you suffer for somebody who didn't appreciate it, they get away scot-free, and they don't change. And you're just like, oh, and the thing is, in our life, that's going to happen a lot. If we are really living according to Christ's way, that's going to happen a lot. We are going to suffer for people in the place of them, and they're not going to suffer at all, and they're not going to change. That is the heart of real Christianity. And you could say, how can you say that's the heart? Well, this is exactly what Jesus did. Jesus did exactly that. And many, even people who call themselves Christians, don't want to change. And Jesus did it anyways. This is the heart of Christianity. Habakkuk didn't like it. I don't know how much I like it. But, however, that's the way it was. So then we get in this time frame. God, you have to punish them right now. The question being, why the rush? Why do we get so, bent out of shape that we have put God on a time frame? Not only do you have to bring instantaneous, not only do you have to bring great devastation to this person because they irritated me, but you got to do it quickly. The question being, why? What's the rush? Does God have to act quickly because you're mad, or is he going somewhere? And we start putting God on this time frame. God, this is what you got to do, and you got to do it by this time. It's like we're his manager. I'm Mr. Manager. And we say, hey, I expect to see those business reports on my desk in the morning. And meanwhile, God is saying, me? I think you got this flipped around. So Habakkuk starts as a plea for justice, then a cry for nationalism. Save Judah, God save the king. But then it turns into this contrast between those who live by faith and the prideful. Those who live by faith are those who trust in God. When you're going through something, when you're dealing with somebody that you don't like, when you're dealing with a situation that's hard, are you trusting in God through it? Are you saying, I need to change my attitude? Or are you saying, wipe them out? Are we coming to God in pride? The one whose heart is not right within him? Is our ego inflated? God, I can't be wrong in this. My ego is inflated. Or are we coming to God with the idea of, well, God, I don't know exactly what's going to happen here. I'm going to trust you through it. And I think there's a world of difference between those two things. And God oftentimes does this in the prophets, where a nation will be a symbol of something. In the book of Habakkuk, Babylon is a symbol of pride. In the book of Obadiah, Esau is a pride. Well, I'll get to that later, because I think we're going to look at Obadiah next week. Anyways, so Habakkuk was prideful at first. Then he started trusting in God. And there's two kind of questions that I think I want to look at. What if God's punishment of those who hurt you the most impacts you too? I want you to think about the people who have hurt you the most, the people who are your greatest enemies, the people who you pray against the most, that you think are so unfair with how they treated you. Maybe it is unfair how they treated you. Maybe you were in kind of an abusive relationship or something. Maybe something happened there, which, see, this is another great failing of Christianity. In the modern era, we've kind of allowed psychology to take the place of Christ's teachings. Even if somebody has abused you, you've been through great traumatic events, God still expects us to forgive people. That's hard. See, we're okay with forgiving as long as, well, we were wrong too a little bit. But when it's, I was 100% right, as, for instance, if you were a child who was abused, a good example. You didn't do anything to deserve that. And still having to forgive them for that. That's very difficult. Another failing of modern Christianity, it's okay to hate your ex-spouse. You can love everybody, but your ex-spouse, they're in a compartment all by themselves. You hate them till the day you die, honey. And it's just not really accurate Christianity. And Christianity is not a fair religion. You get saved not by anything that you do. That's not fair. You have to forgive those who don't deserve it. That's not fair. And so if you're looking for something fair, Christ's teachings are not fair. What if God's punishment of those who hurt you the most negatively impacts you too? What if you have to suffer unfairly with those who are getting what they deserve? Did I have that up there? Yeah, there it is. What if you have to suffer unfairly with those who are getting what they deserve? But God, I don't deserve this. That's a little bit difficult. Punishment becomes opportunity for us to change and grow for those who choose to trust in God. And you might say, okay, well, what if I choose not to trust in God and I'm just going to, I'm good, God, I can handle this. Well, if we refuse to change, if we refuse to trust God, punishment becomes a constant irritant that serves absolutely no purpose. It is a constant thing that bugs you to death and serves no purpose. Because you refuse to grow, your character doesn't grow. So you go through a struggle and it goes on and on and on. You don't become a better person. You just become more and more bitter every single year. See, it's the same thing. It's whether or not we allow God to make it something worthwhile or not. Whether we allow God to give purpose to our pain or whether we'd rather just hold on to it with both hands. We all go through pain, and the idea that I'm the only one is based more on a hurt heart than on facts. When God is working in someone else and they are refusing to change and trust God, they're refusing that, okay? Here's what's going to happen. This is a spoiler alert, okay? So if you're somebody who doesn't like people telling you the ending of the book, then you're going to have to plug your ears real quick. This is the spoiler, okay? God's punishment of them will make things hard for you, and you will suffer unfairly. When God is working in someone else and they are not growing, that punishment that God is giving will make things hard for you. And you will suffer unfairly. You don't know how many times I've seen people who are fighting God in their hearts. It's all over their face, and it comes out with how they treat me. See, and you have to get to the place of saying they're not rejecting me, they're rejecting God. And that's really what it is. When people get to a place of rejecting God in their lives, anything that even reminds them of that, it's friendly fire. It's open season. I mean, it's just... But here's the good news. It's an opportunity for you. How can that unfair situation be an opportunity? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because you can always learn to grow. And you can always trust God in any situation. And that's how it's an opportunity. So let's throw things into a fire pit here and cook it all together. Oh, yeah, that was my... Whoop. That's the big idea for what I just said. Punishment becomes opportunity to grow if we trust in God. Okay, there we go. So let's wrap things up here. First off, we are called to suffer, even from those called friend, even from those called Christian. That's actually what we are called to. We are called to suffering, and we are also called to endure. We are also called to change. We're also called to trust God through it. This is our calling. It's the calling that is on each of our lives. To suffer, to endure the suffering, to change from the suffering, and to trust God through the suffering. That is a call that is on your life. One thing that I learned very, very long time ago, and I'm very thankful that I learned it, is to pray for them like you pray for you. Pray for your enemies like you pray for you. One thing that I got into the habit of praying, whatever they have wronged me in, God, I pray that you would overlook it. Any claim I have of this person wronging me, I'm saying don't hold it against them, God. Wipe it off the slate. I forgive them. I don't want you to punish them for it. We're moving on. God, I'm asking that whatever they have wronged me in, that you would overlook it. Let whatever quarrel you have with them, God, be between you and them. I'm washing my hands of this. I'm releasing my claim that I have on this. When you pray that and you genuinely mean it, you're going to feel a very big weight just kind of let go. You don't have to pursue it. You don't have to win that one. You can just let it go. Sometimes we're so used to holding on to things that we're unaware that we can, in fact, let it go. They can't get away free, God. Well, here's the thing. If you don't forgive, you can't help others. That's the first thing. You can't help somebody else if you are in the pit of bitterness. Everything you say will be tainted. And you certainly can't help them. You won't even want to. Something happened very recently with somebody who I just despise. Oh, I did not like this person. And so then somebody else also didn't like them. And typically what we do is, haha, now I have an ally, right? But that's not what happened because I had already forgiven them and moved on. And when I saw this other person had an attitude problem, I was able to talk to them without my attitude because I didn't have an attitude problem towards them anymore. And I was able to say, hey, you need to make this right. Do you know what I mean? That was a situation that I was able to do because I grew. I was able to help them. I was able to help myself in a lot of ways because I stayed out of a gossip group. Anybody can get into a gossip group. Another thing that happens if you don't forgive, you get bitter. And the thing about bitterness is it spreads to other people. It spreads to other areas of your life. You always have to prove that you're right, that you're the victim and everything. And here's the real kicker. Hey, if you don't forgive, and this is a promise from God, God won't punish them. So you better forgive them so God will punish them. It's okay. It's all right. We're all friends, right? Anyways. And then the last little thing, Satan uses some people to tear down others. There are some people, Christians and non-Christians alike, that have given Satan a very real opportunity to just go around cursing people, just going around tearing people down, saying snide comments, gossiping, and tearing down what others have created. It's a very real thing that they have allowed Satan to have in their life. And because of it, they will face a greater temptation and they will face greater punishments. So my question becomes, is he using you? No, you don't understand. I was the one they wronged me, okay? So I was the hero in this. That was then. What about now? Is Satan using you now because you were unfairly treated? Because unfairly you were treated poorly then. See, if you were mistreated, okay, that's on them. If you reacted negatively to that, well, that's on you. So now, is Satan using you to get vengeance and return evil to that person who gave you evil like he previously used them? See, rather than becoming a master to God and rather than putting yourself high above everybody else in your life, genuinely weigh your heart and ask yourself this, is Satan using me or is God using me right now? And that is where it switches from you being more righteous than them to you going to God in prayer. So this week, practice releasing the debts you hold over others and grow. This is a chance in your life to trust God. There was a person who I was dealing with. It was a pain in the butt. And they taught me what I was turning into. I was able to get a future glimpse of the choices that I was currently making and where it was going to take me. I was able to look 40 years into the future and say, that's what I'm becoming. The reason why it irritated me so much is because it was exactly what was in my heart. I was complaining. I was wounded. I was bitter. I was hurt. And it irritated me, which was an opportunity to grow. When something irritates you, chalk it down in your notebook that it's an opportunity for you to grow. Or be bitter about it, whatever you want to do. Lord, thank you for giving us your word, Amos last week and Habakkuk this week, Lord, and that you give us instruction for life and how to find healing and peace and how to move forward. And I pray that you would help us to move forward. God, help us to get over past hurts. Help us to really pray in such a way that we say, whatever debt they owe me, that you wouldn't hold it against them, that I just release it. Lord, help us to grow sweeter as the days go by and not more bitter. Help us to be like a fine wine and not like a bucket of vinegar. Lord, we love you. Amen.